think sometimes people expect it
Hello.
all to be
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming. So I'm going to start, first of all, by saying thank you all for coming. Give you a warning that I like things to be interactive, so there will be roving mics, and I will encourage questions from the floor once we've heard from all of our speakers and my set questions. If people don't put their hands up, I will ask you to ask a question. I also need to point out two things. I'm not being an idiot wearing my sunglasses inside. I've left my proper glasses somewhere else in the show. So I'm not being rude wearing my sunnies, otherwise I can't see you. And somebody stole my reusable water bottle. I'm very aware this is the sustainability panel and I'm using single-use plastic, so I do apologise. It's not my fault somebody nicked my nice bottle. Okay, so is everybody comfy? If you do have questions to ask, please raise your hand and a roving mic will come to you, because this is being recorded, so we can't hear you on the recording without a mic. But I'm going to start off, first of all, by asking our panel to introduce themselves. So starting with you, sir, of left, I'm going to do my Scylla. What's your name and where do you come from?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Craig Harvey. I'm from British Steel. I'm the Commercial Director for Rail and a few other products at British Steel. And I'm pleased to be here today.
Can I just check, can we all hear Craig's mic? Because your mic's sticking quite out. Other side. Other side. There we go.
Pull it round. Madonna style.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Well, I'm Craig Harvey. I'm the Commercial Director for Rail and a few things at British Steel. And good afternoon to you all.
And British Steel are the sponsors of the Sustainability Zone at Rail Live.
Hi everyone, I'm Jo Lewington. I'm the Chief Environment and Sustainability Officer at Network Rail.
Hi everyone, I'm Angela Cruikshanks. I'm the Head of Environment and Sustainability with Atkins Realis for the UK and Ireland. I tried to get out of the rail industry, but I got sucked back in. And I was formerly Network Rail and RSSB as well.
Okay, and you're currently chairing which group in RSSB?
I currently chair the Rail Infrastructure Sustainability Forum.
Thank you very much.
And Mike Noakes, Head of Rail at the Department for Business and Trade. And I was also in its predecessor and its predecessor, so I've been doing it about 10 years now.
He knows his stuff is what he means. My name's Lucy Pryor. The day job is I'm Strategic Growth Director at a training and consultancy service that provides wellbeing services, predominantly to the railway industry, but I've got a personal passion for us being better residents of our planet, which Jo definitely has heard me going on about quite a lot as well. So I'm going to open up with a few set questions. We'll save Q&A from the floor till the end, if that's okay. So starting with yourself, Mike, considering your role in government, looking at the really high macro level and perhaps what's happening with or without the states at the moment as well. We've got net zero targets, we've got procurement challenges at that macro level. What tension is the department having to balance?
Right, yeah, where'd you start? My director includes in his life British Steel and the steel industry generally, the chemicals industry, so including Grangemouth and Ineos, as well as last year a couple of issues with train factories running out of work. The really sort of high-level stuff, I guess, so government has decided, I think we'd all agree correctly, that we should sustain a primary steel industry. Therefore, you've got to fuel it. And we all know you need iron ore, you need coking coal, you need so on and so forth, which we don't all produce. Therefore, is it right that we import coking coal? Well, yes, it has to be, if we want to make primary steel. Tartar and recycling scrap isn't the answer for everything. It's not straightforward. It's not perfect, but I think it's just where we are.
I think that's the crucial thing, isn't it? We don't have a simplistic let's do the greenish thing, because we do have all those other challenges to balance the needs of as well. So coming over to you, Craig. Perfect segue, I believe. Thank you for sponsoring us again. Similar question, but specific to British Steel. There's been so much coverage around that in the public press, the need to import fuels, for example. And we can't ignore that, but from your perspective, what is the balance that we can find between the environmental and the economic sustainability angles that we have to have? And what timescales, from your perspective, are we talking about?
So thanks Lucy. It's a pleasure to be sponsoring the event today. And you're right, British Steel's has been competing with Donald Trump for the news headlines in the past 2 or 3 months or so, and it was quite encouraging, as Mike alluded to, that we were fortunate enough for Parliament to be recalled and for the government to step in and maintain virgin steelmaking within the UK. And I think there's national security issues associated with that, but there's also decarbonisation issues are right at the heart of that really, because from the British Steel perspective, you know, we're a big emitter of greenhouse gases. We're one of the largest in the UK, one of the largest of scope 1 and 2 emissions in the UK, and solving the decarbonisation strategies for British Steel will make a significant impact on the wider UK legal commitments. And these are big and they're expensive decisions. And I think the reason I'm keen just to sort of say a few words today is they're not quick. Taking these decisions too quickly and inaccurately can be the difference between business viability and not having a viable business to move forward. And I think, you know, we made the headlines as well yesterday for partnerships with Network Rail, and the example I'm probably just going to try to draw from in here today is my view of the UK rail industry is that they've been extremely pragmatic in recognising that you need to do the right thing, but you need to do it at an affordable pace. And so we've been given a 5-year partnership continuity with Network Rail, which is wonderful, and we'll probably see more announcements in the coming weeks and months around as we try to do that. And so my message is do the right thing, and we've got a number of products which we put into the market which encourage life cycle decisions. For example, we've got some corrosion resistant products and some high performance rail products. And all these things are based on life cycle, which can sometimes make difficult procurement decisions because it can mean an initial higher cost. But when you look through the life cycle and the carbon balance associated with it, it's the right decision to take. And I think from a timescale perspective, the decarbonisation journey which British Steel will go through, I've not got it on a piece of paper written down in front of me, I don't know what it looks like today, but it will be for the wider good of the UK. It will include the rest of the UK assets. The government will help with that in ensuring that that maintaining virgin steel making in the UK supports all the rest of the UK steel market. And I think that'll be 5 years, and we'll consider all technologies. Well, that's how I view, as a pragmatic bloke, trying to get the balance between time pressures and economic viability.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to come to you now, Joe. So you've been, I mean, I've known you for a few years now, Network Rail, through yourself, you've been really clear about setting goals, asking, requesting that supply chain help you with, whether it's science-based initiatives or whether it's us doing what we can to address our scope 1 and 2, our own production transport emissions, to help reduce Network Rail's scope 3 emissions. I understand that your environment and sustainability strategy is about to be released as a version 2, as an upgraded version. So since the launch of your initial strategy, what have been the biggest successes and what is the refresh likely to entail? What does that mean for us?
So
Lots there.
We've now gone live with our new Greener Railway strategy, which I'm really pleased about, because 5 years ago we launched our very first environmental sustainability strategy, and it was just that. It focused really on the environmental sustainability aspects. If we look back over those last 5 years, we've matured quite significantly. It wasn't something that was necessarily our bag, and I don't think it necessarily still is yet. We're on a journey, we're always learning. But actually, I think the new Greener Railway strategy aligns with Network Rail's new kind of control period vision of simpler, better, greener. The Greener Railway strategy plugs into that really neatly. So it's not a ripping up and starting all over again of the original strategy, it's a refresh. So it contains all of the components of the pillars of the original strategy, but for the first time it brings social sustainability under the umbrella, which I think shows that level of maturity that we didn't have 5 years ago. In terms of successes, I think we've made some really good progress looking at, when I first came into this role, which coincidentally was 5 years ago. I literally came in as we went live with the first strategy. We were focusing on what I would call smaller items, things like coffee cup recycling at stations. Yeah. And whilst that kind of links in with the passenger, which is important to make that connection, we really wanted to shift our focus to the bigger ticket items of concrete, steel and ballast. And we've done that, you know. I mean, as I say, I think kind of to reiterate what Craig just said, we're never going to be perfect. But let's not let perfection get in the way of progress. Yeah. We're on a journey, and I think there's a lot to celebrate about rail. We're in our 200th year anniversary. Isn't that amazing? And isn't it amazing to think that in another 200 years, the railway will still be here because we've got a sustainable railway? So, yeah, I think we have got a lot to celebrate, but we're not quite there yet. But let's not forget.
Let's get ready for the celebration. Okay. Come on to yourself, Angela. Your day job, an internal advisor at Atkins Realis. So all the verticals within that group come to you for advice. Also chairing the, let me get the name right, the Rail Infrastructure Sustainability Forum. So you're leading that group to improve sustainability within rail projects, but as I say, within the day job, you're responsible for answering to all the other sectors within. So what do you think are easier wins are within rail, and is there anything we're doing better than other sectors?
I think for me, there's two sides of it, because I have obviously been on the client side as well. Sustainable procurement seems to be quite a big deal now, because we are being asked to put in contracts and to put in bids what we are doing as a business. And I agree with Joe, the coffee cup analogy is similar, like, yeah, we can turn lights off in offices and stuff, and I'm not saying that's not important anymore, but it's the big stuff, it's the sustainable by design and it's the sustainable procurement elements that I think we've got the biggest opportunity, because we've talked about safe by design for a long time, but sustainability by design, certainly in the RESIF group, which are all made up of tier 1 contractors like ourselves that work for Network Rail and HS2 and TfL, we'll kind of cry out for some of that guidance to standardise the sort of processes around procurement and about design, because that's where the big opportunities are. So, for example, we've delivered work on Wigan to Bolton electrification and the Midland Main Line. The savings that we've already achieved in carbon reduction as well as cost, we're talking in the millions already before even delivering on the project, because of the whole life aspect that Craig was talking about. Yeah. So actually, I think we've got a brilliant opportunity in the rail industry. It's always been viewed as the greener way of travel and all of that kind of thing. And I'm encouraged that it's still striving to do more, though, in that space with the sort of early design, early construction and all of those type of aspects. I think having had experience now in other sectors, certainly things like the water sector, I mean, the government have just announced 8 to 12 new reservoirs and the construction of all of those, and we're looking to bid on a lot of those contracts as well. Lots of that sustainable design is coming into that as well, and how we can sort of conserve the resources. So whilst all that environmental side of it is still really important, it's about how we enact on it. And I think that's becoming increasingly more important in loads of sectors, the design and the procurement, because what we're finding as, and it's certainly bugbear of RESIF members, is we get asked for all these things at bids, but it doesn't transpire into contracts. Yeah. And then it's hard to then, all the environment and sustainability stuff feels like an add-on rather than filter through to the contract, which is the challenge for the suppliers to the industry. So, few challenges there, but I think some similarities across sectors around design and around procurement. Yeah.
And from a government perspective, what would your views be, Mike, on sustainable by design, thinking of that longer term picture?
I mean, in the Cabinet Office, there is a unit that particularly looks at things like BIM. We're now into BIM level. Sorry, building information modelling. Yeah, so I used to calling it BIM, which basically, and it seems bizarre in retrospect that it's imaginative that we're taking in maintenance as an extra thing. We're taking in how the building performs for its users, but these are sort of actually sort of built into the process. We're also looking at reform public procurement approaches, which seeks to increase the value given to social value considerations, given to net zero considerations, also given to local jobs considerations, because it's about building communities. So sustainability in all its forms.
Yeah. Yeah, triple bottom line, people, planet, prosperity. And that's a perfect segue for another question I was going to ask you, Craig.
Can I just make a point there, Lucy? Because I think sort of building and the design, I just want to share an example. Again, it's between British Steel and Network Rail. So what we do is we supply great big long lengths of rail, 216 metres long, into Network Rail. And what's happening today, we send it down there, they drop it off the side of the track, they dig the other one up, gets cut up and sent somewhere else to a little recycling centre. And we use these rail delivery trains to do that. And you're going through a tender process at the moment of trying to build some more. And with the sustainability element in mind, as they're dropping a rail off now, we're going to pick up one of the old ones and bring the train back to Scunthorpe, and we're going to use it in our steel making processes, and we're going to create a circular economy as a part of the greener railway. So I've got an evidence in practice there as to how it's happening.
That's like two-way groupage, isn't that? That's your logistics groupage plus your circular economy, and it's thinking that step ahead and joining it up, isn't it? The point you, or the phrase you used was social sustainability, and looking at the procurement rules changes. I can't help but reflect on your accent, Craig. I know you're born and bred local to Scunthorpe site, and I know that Scunthorpe is investing heavily in the region. We'll come on to your products in a bit, but can you tell us a little bit more about job creation in Scunthorpe and how you're reflecting that through a sustainable lens as well?
So I feel like I'm banging on about the past and how wonderful it is now, and it's not always like that, but I guess as we've had our future secured in the past couple of months, we've announced 150 jobs at Scunthorpe, another 30 or 40 up at Teesside as we look to increase our volumes. And when you increase those volumes, it does reduce your carbon intensity because you work in your product significantly more efficiently. So efficient production, efficient volume, value-added economy, local employment. That's the way we're heading at the moment, yeah.
Excellent. And thinking, so we've got the steelworks in Scunthorpe. It's evolving, it's changing the technologies that are used there. So I'm imagining it's different skills that are going to be required up there. You're going to have a shift in the skills portfolio, and I can't help but then shoehorn in GCRE, because I know it's a passion of your owners, and that it's going to be game changing for the industry. As a demonstrator of efficiency and sustainability, what is GCRE specifically in relation to the railway, but then the wider energy creation picture as well?
There are three things with GCRE. In some ways, the most important thing is it will be a vibrant economic asset for South Wales. And by God, does South Wales need it?
Yeah.
If Tata drops 3,000 jobs, where are those people going to be employed? Well, GCRE works properly. We'll have 1,000 of them there, and they are high quality, well paid, skilled jobs. For the railway, it gives you the opportunity to the USP will actually be the infrastructure testing. You can test infrastructure to destruction on what will be a Class 1 railway and prove stuff works. Which right now you've either got to take it to Colorado, in which case the cost is enormous and the lead time is also enormous.
And the travelling carbon footprint.
And never mind the carbon footprint, yeah. Or you've got to decommission parts of the actual commercial network in the UK to try it, or you've got to use heritage railways, none of which are ideal. And finally, there is 700 hectares with pretty much open planning permission. South Wales is known for lively weather. So the potential for having photovoltaic cells and turbines on there is significant. They intend to be the first from scratch net zero railway.
And is that including the demonstrator products that are installed in there?
That's a good question. Don't know. Good question.
I like it. I like someone. Thank you. And thank you for being able to say that you don't know. I say that because I've been doing a whole load on psychological safety throughout the rest through the show as well. So I wanted to pick as well, Joe, the Network Rail phrase simpler, better, greener. And it's wonderful to hear that it is wrapping into the sustainability strategy as well. Are those 3 pillars mutually beneficial? And what challenges do you see in achieving it?
So, absolutely. And if you go onto our website and have a look at our new strategy, you will see that what we've done is made the linkage between not just the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, but also the key aspects of the Sustainable Rail Blueprint, which is our industry blueprint, and our other strategic themes within Network Rail, things like safety, train service delivery, performance, those kinds of strategic themes. So yes, in essence, having a simpler, better railway by its nature becomes a more sustainable railway. So we're really making those linkages. I would just say that a big part of what we're working on now with this sustainability drive in Network Rail is culture. And we know, we've got a workforce, I'm not quite sure of the exact number, but let's say around about 40,000 people. We do not need an army of sustainability professionals. We have a team of sustainability experts in technical authority, quite a small team actually. But they're the experts. What we need is an army of railway people that understand what a greener railway looks like, what sustainability truly is, and how they can embed that into their day-to-day work. So that's a really big drive for us as we move forward. Now we've published the Greener Railway Strategy.
So is that an ongoing training and development program within Network Rail?
I would also give a quick plug because RIA have been amazing. So I was with RIA a few weeks ago down in London doing an event to coincide with the launch of the Greener Railway Strategy. We've been working with the Supply Chain Sustainability School. And we now have some learning pathways free to access for anybody linked into Supply Chain Sustainability School that are linked to the Greener Railway Strategy. So it brings it to life. It's not perfect because we simply don't want to start creating new learning materials. Actually, let's use what we've already got. We are doing an internal e-learning for Network Rail staff about what a greener railway, what a sustainable railway is. So we're on that again. We're on that journey, that cultural journey of education, and really making sure that it's embedded right throughout our business.
And presumably cascading that down through supply chain as well. Can I have a quick show of hands? Hands up if you have heard of the Supply Chain Sustainability School.
Oh, excellent.
That's pretty good. Okay, so everyone who's got your hands down, please Google Supply Chain Sustainability School and create yourselves a profile on there. So I use it as an individual. There's an amazing amount of just free information on there, even, I shouldn't say this, I'm sorry, but even if just from a very straightforward sales perspective, it helps you speak the language of your clients. And because of those procurement rules, we have those tender weightings on sustainability, social value. It's crucial that we all know this, isn't it?
On those learning pathways, Risa for the group that help review, and so that not just Network Rail but the rest of the supply chain were consistent in that training as well. So there's been a few layers of consultation through it. So
excellent. Okay, so I was going to come on to you with a RECIF question. Okay. Looking at, climate resilience is one of the major issues for rail. It's one of the key focus points for Network Rail right now. What do you think is the hardest balance to strike between sustainable and cost-effective design and delivering rail projects that balance both of those?
Thanks for the hard question, Lucy.
Well, it was you.
I'll one up for all of you, don't worry.
No, I think certainly from a design point of view, we've definitely been in I know I keep going on about design, but we've definitely been in the sort of background looking at sort of the engineering solutions and stuff like that, which have got your higher carbon sort of intensive materials and things like that. There's a lot of work going on for nature-based solutions now, which can almost combat the sort of climate resilience and adaptation challenge in that the network does need to be resilient. And for it to be resilient, then it needs to be cleverly designed, cleverly constructed. With that then comes with all these extra carbon intensive processes and stuff like that. So I think the challenge is really there. I do feel that some things were very, some parts of the industry do it really, really well, but I don't think it's consistent. So, for example, renewable energies, we've seen it where we've used it for temporary work sites. We've put a solar turner on a site to power a work site, and everyone's like, this isn't going to work because it's a winter work site and we live in the UK and there's no sun about. But in the winter work site, we still managed to generate 48% of renewable energy. And going back to Joe's point as well, that didn't just it didn't just have a benefit around carbon. It diverted 10,000 litres of diesel away from that work site on a 9-week work site, which reduced the cost completely to below what it would have been if we just had those 10,000 litres of diesel on site, and that was in a really temporary work site. So I think we talk sometimes about design and stuff and the upfront investment in stuff, when actually it can demonstrate the payback in very little short times as well. And I think for sort of to make the network a bit more resilient, we'll have to be looking at those kind of sort of options, because they're not, it's not the rocket science stuff anymore. Lots of companies are doing these kind of things. They hire out the solar panels for your work site, and and they're becoming a lot more available. And where people say, oh, it's expensive to do, it might seem that way, but I think the culture is changing. I remember when electric cars came out and everyone was like, that's so expensive, can't buy an electric car. And now the demand's getting bigger, so then the cost's coming down. It's becoming more reasonable as an option. Whereas before, I think culturally we're a bit like, oh, we don't want to touch it because it's meant to be an innovative, sustainable option. It's gonna add X amount on our bill, when actually it's the right thing to do, as Craig already said. We've already proved that it reduces cost. So actually the argument that we're talking about today around carbon versus cost,
Not necessarily there.
I don't think it's there. I don't think there's merit in it, to be honest.
It's looking at that long-term picture.
Yeah.
And what's coming, sorry, I've been involved in a whole load of different safety conversations today. And we're talking about sustainability now. We talk about early contractor involvement. It sounds like whatever the challenge is that we're trying to improve, if we give ourselves that luxury of time to properly plan a safer, better, quicker, greener railway, whilst creating jobs and balancing those trade-offs that we do have to have. We do need commodities. We do need the fuels to make, whether it's factories run or vehicles move.
Yeah.
So I've got
just to finish off there as well, that site that I'm talking about, not only was it just reducing carbon, but it improved the air quality at that site. It reduced the noise. You're being a better neighbour, your workforce safety, you don't need all of the sort of RPE equipment that you might have had to fit your guys with as well. So the workforce safety risk is almost removed by putting in some sustainable options.
Yeah.
So,
which then goes back into feeding it down to the culture and cascading down the message. This is for the good of all of us, not just a nice tick box.
I would say, I think it's a little bit of an urban myth, and I get really fed up when I hear people say, oh, we would do a sustainable solution, but it's more expensive. It isn't always the case. So we've got, actually, if you go out there now, you'll see a company called Land Recovery, who we've been working with doing ballast reuse program. So not only does it save us about £1 million a year, currently, and that's based off just two and a bit sites of operation. So you think what that could do when you scale it up in terms of the ballast we use. It's 50% virgin, 50% reuse. It also has carbon reduction, and it also is better for our workers because there's less dust. So, there are so many positives that I just think it's very easy to kind of jump on the green bashing wagon. And actually, a lot of it is urban myth now. So let's get away from talking about that, and let's talk more about the positive examples. Demand, as it comes up and the supply then comes up, the cost will come down. But I can't remember who said it at the beginning, maybe I think it might have been you, Craig, that you need to look whole life.
Yes,
definitely.
Stop making short-term decisions, because until we do that, we're not going to move out of that cycle, frankly.
Not to be contentious, do you think the control period windows enable that? Is this something that can be done?
We are funded in 5 yearly control periods. And I think actually who knows what the future holds, but I definitely think, and I can say this hand on heart because I was around when British Rail was around. My first year was a year of privatisation. So I think bringing track and train back together and getting rid of this fragmented industry will be a massive positive. But we do enter contracts that are longer than, I mean, look, we've entered a contract with EDF Renewables for a corporate power purchase agreement for renewable energy. You know, it can be done. So let's not use it as an excuse. I think where there's a will, there's a way. And we know that actually, fundamentally, this is law anyway. You know, you can kick the can down the road, but you're still going to have to get to net zero.
Now I'll
so
make it really hard in 2050, 2030. I've got loads more questions, but I want to get you guys involved. So hands up, please, if you have a question. And where do we have our roving mics, please? There we go. Emma. Knew I could rely on you. I've got a couple of other faces I know I can rely on.
This one's for Joe. You can rely on me for a question.
Yes.
Emma Porter, so I am practice director at Kintralis, but I also have another kind of hat for this. I also run a small community interest company focused on sustainability and circular economy. This has sort of been touched on a little bit. Angela talked a bit about sustainable by design. And I think in the question of, let me tell a quick little bit of background. I remember going to an event years ago at University of Manchester, and they looked around the room and they said that we've got catering for 30 people, and we've got seats for 50 people, and we've got a fire system that can cater for 200 people, and the physical space in this room can fit in probably about 70 people, but the structural steel could hold 20,000 people in this space. And I mean, in rail, there certainly are schemes that I've been involved in delivering as a contractor that look massively over-engineered. And I think when you think about the kind of cost versus sustainability, like the most sustainable thing you can do is not buy something, right, and not use something. So I guess I am coming around to a question. My question is how much appetite is there, and how ready are we to begin to challenge kind of the engineering designs and to say, look, the biggest way to reduce cost and sustainability is to just ask ourselves, is this correct? And of course that needs to be with a heavy lens of safety and quality, not slipping, but so yeah, are we doing that? Should we be doing it? Should we be doing it more? That's my question.
Well, gold plating jumped in my mind for you. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this plays into what we want GBR to do, I think. And from somebody who's been a sort of champion of the supply chain and wants to get the supply chain a seat at the table at GBR, there's so much expertise there that has grown since privatisation happened. You know, there are various parts of government who are not the experts on the railway, much as they might wish to think they are. We want to get the actual functioning railway into the room for that, so as they can advise on what practical outcomes are. You know, government needs to set policy outcomes. Brilliant. You don't need to specify how you get there with the grade of steel involved and the wattage of whatever else and so on. That's what industry is good at. That's what industry is there for. I'm absolutely convinced about that. How we're going to manage that into GBR, I don't know. How are we going to do it?
Who's next?
I actually think, so I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think it does rely on GBR. I think we can agree disagreeably, as they would say on The Rest is Politics. It can be done right now, and it is being done actually. Just thinking about our investment, our investment process. Again, and it's a bit of like a maturity thing, isn't it? We are now aware that we need to build sustainability into design. Yes, we're aware of minimum viable product, and that isn't cheapest. And I kind of think that's, again, a little bit of a kind of, people always think, oh, minimum viable product is the cheapest. And it's not, it's what's most suitable for what you're delivering. Viable is the key there. So I think it's about having informed decision makers. You know, informed clients, if you like, when you're working on a project. So they're asking the right questions, coming to your point. And actually that filters right the way through the organisation. You can think actually at a very, very, very local level, to your point, don't buy what you don't need. I've been around so many depots in my years where I've seen stockpiles of materials and they're not to be shared because they're this part and not to be shared with that part. And I kind of think, again, it's that change of culture. It's being responsible, both at decision-making level, so when we're going to investment panels, that actually we have sustainability now built into investment paper. So we're not able to just tick a box and go, tick. We actually have to go and have discussions. So it's having informed clients, but it's also that culture throughout the organisation, right down at a local level as well.
I think we also have had opportunities to challenge standards, but it's not, and quite successfully, certainly in HS2 and things like that, that has happened before. However, it's not done as the norm, and I think sometimes maybe the PAS 2080 route is probably going to help people do that a bit more, because it's encouraging a collaborative discussion between your whole supply chain and the client and the delivery from the start of the project to where you are. And we've already sort of challenged even back around some of the PAS 2080 principles, because we're trying to understand, well, where are the sticking points? Because, like you say, it could be inefficient for supply chain or coming in at a really low, like further down part of the project, when actually loads of decisions have been made up front, and then you're getting expected to deliver against them. But I think the principles around the PAS 2080 sort of model helps you challenge that a little bit, certainly on the carbon front. But I'm not saying it's a one size fits all, and it's very new in its sort of publication. So, but at least we can see there's a sort of universal mechanism there.
You got anything to add to that one, Craig?
I'm quite simple. I say, if you don't need to build it, don't build it. If you do need to build it, buy it, whatever you want. If you do need to buy it for a product life cycle perspective. That's all I'll say. I don't get involved in the design side too much, but if I see people taking short-term decisions, then I push back against it. Product life cycle is a thing I would really encourage comes into that when there is a need to buy decision.
Thank you.
Avoid, switch, improve.
Who's going to ask our next question? We've got just down here with this lady here in blue. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sakshi, and I have a question regarding how is Network Rail using its leadership position encouraging social value impact to its suppliers down in the supply chain?
Well, it's a really good question, and thank you for asking it. So it gives us a platform to talk about the work we've done. So in the last 5 years, we developed a social value model, which kind of sat alongside our original strategy. And as I said at the beginning, we have now got a social pillar of our new greener railway strategy is a railway that helps communities thrive. And that is about working with local communities. And we have some I always look at, I wrote down in my notes here, and I always try and build this into, if I'm on a panel, the point that you are never far from a railway. We're like the arteries of the nation. They're kind of everywhere, aren't they? So there's a massive opportunity, as well as responsibility. We're one of Britain's biggest neighbours. So there's a big opportunity for us to work with local communities, and we do, but there's so much more that we can do. And I think when you think about the opportunity for rail going forward, let's not kid ourselves. We have kind of, I say, rested on our laurels for some time, thinking, rail is already the greenest form of mass transport. Well, it is, but other sectors are catching up. And so if we want to be a railway fit for the future, we have to tap into those opportunities. We have something called the Rail Social Value Tool. So it's a tool that was developed by the RSSB, working with us and with DFT. It, for the first time, enables us to monetize the social value of the activity, of the spend that we have with supply chain. So it's a really fantastic tool to bring that to life. TransPennine Route Upgrade are an amazing project doing some really good work in that space. So go check that out if you want to find out more. My social value lead is not here today, unfortunately, but I can connect you in with her because she's a whiz on this stuff, and she's the expert. Okay.
And so I'm jumping in onto that question. Is that the tool you'd recommend your supply chain to measure against as well? Because there's TOMS, there's Sustainable Development Goals, there's the rail supply chain sustainability.
So RSSB are doing some work. They are the kind of organisation that bring membership. It's a membership organisation, as you know, so they work closely with supply chain. So yes, I would say it's absolutely a tool that anybody can use. Mm-hmm. They're looking at really kind of, I don't know if you were involved in that actually, you were, Angela.
What you were going to say
back in the day. But it is something that they're looking to make sure that it ramps up. And they're linked in with government as well, so it aligns with Green Book. It's a genuine you know, a good tool that should be used.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
been redeveloped a little bit, and it's definitely got a place for the supply chain as well, because then you can start comparing some of the data in it. There has been definitely some challenges. I know Joe's kind of said we were in RSSB at the time developing that tool, but actually I don't think there's a mandate to use certain ones, and I know certain frameworks across the rail industry do ask for different tools, like Thrive, for example.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the carbon tools as well, though. I feel like every man and their
There are
dog
lots
are
of different
building
ones. Where's the
different
best one to
ones.
go to?
And I think Network Rail have been really good at recognising that there's a competitive market out there for them now. But as long as you can sort of do that, then
But we have to compare apples
Apple-
with apples.
we do.
I remember
Yeah.
Rachel Skinner, who chairs we have a really amazing group called the Infrastructure Client Group. And as the name would imply, it is all big infrastructure clients coming together, because fundamentally, we're all trying to tackle the same thing here. So let's not go do it in isolation. Let's come together and harness that kind of collective power. And I remember the very first time I met Rachel, she said, what we don't need is a bowl of fruit salad. You know, we need to be able to compare apples with apples, and it is really tricky. I've got some members of my team in the room today, and one in particular who's focusing on carbon. It's quite a complex area, and if we're not careful, we get very diverted, and it's a very busy space as well, with lots of people selling you stuff. And actually what we really want to do is reduce the carbon and demonstrate and have consistency in reporting, ultimately.
Measure these things for the right reason, not for the monetisation of a tool. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. There must be another question from the floor, otherwise I will... Here we go. Gentleman down at the front, please.
Good afternoon, Darryl Simpson, Director of Fleet and Engineering for Network Rail, looking after our on-track machine fleet. And I completely take on board that long-term we can invest in designing the right sustainable solution. My challenge is meeting short-term carbon reduction targets. So we burn a lot of diesel every year. I could go out tomorrow and start burning HVO, and that has its own sustainability questions, but it comes with a cost premium as well. So, coming back to the theme of costs, is it worth me paying 10% premium for HVO and reducing my carbon, but putting cost into the delivery of every job we do? Or should we focus on those longer term goals of getting the diesel engines out or better burning engines? And there are some things we can do to improve efficiency, which is a win-win. But I'm struggling with whether it's the right thing to do to spend money to reduce carbon.
I get you, and I think I don't think we should knee-jerk. You're right. We need to consider any unintended consequences of using alternatives. I know that Chiltern Railways actually moved to using HVO, and it did come at an extra cost. We have to consider that we are taxpayer funded. And as I said at the beginning, let's not let perfection get in the way of progress. So I feel like it's not at any cost. Yes, we have to make change. Yes, we are underway with that. Sometimes it can feel like it's a little bit glacial. So we absolutely have to start moving at pace now. But I wouldn't necessarily say that means it's giving us a green light to just go fill everything up with HVO, because I don't think that is actually the solution. I might get shot down by my energy our person over there now, but
I agree with that.
Thank you.
If that was my decision at British Steel and I had a similar debate, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put 10% cost in
And that's because we are
today.
in
On,
very...
that to be a big reason to do that. I think that's my perspective there.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's like it's our money, it's our tax that's being spent. Let's spend it the most efficiently and sustainably possible. Before we finish, any final questions? Gentlemen at the back? This will be our final one, I'm afraid.
Hi, I'm Andy from Getstar. We supply Network Rail with a product, and I don't want it to sound like a sales pitch, so I won't mention the product. Okay?
Good lad.
But what it does is extends the track life by 30%. It reduces the maintenance by 60%. And my sales pitch has always been whole life cycle costs. Now, if you take 60% less maintenance, that's 60% less tamping, that's 60% less CO2 footprint. I think we're very good at asking for EPDs and environmental product declarations, and yes, these things are important, but if you take not just whole life cycle costs, but whole life carbon into consideration. How do we put that forward as an argument? And just to give you an example, the product is used 100% in some areas of the track, in some areas of the country, but in other areas it's 0%. So how do we convince the areas at 0% all of the benefits, and can we force them to use such products?
That because you've seen a different uptake in different routes and regions because of different perceptions or preferences? Okay, so how can we make our choices more uniform and more sustainable without creating monopolies as well? Oh, that's a nice, easy one. Finish on a good one.
I mean, I'm amazed if you're, with what you've just described there, cost reduction, maintenance reduction, I would be surprised if there wasn't a regional finance director that ears didn't prick up at that and go, why aren't we doing this? We do, I mean, I would say we share examples across the business. So it would be useful to understand that a bit more, and then maybe just have a, just find out, because we are a devolved organisation, and with that comes, a level of regions need to run the way that the region needs to run. But if there's a great idea and it's saving money and it's saving carbon and it's saving maintenance, why would you not? I can't understand that. So I'd like to hear a bit more about that.
Can I try and guess the product? Is this
Go on,
the product? Or something that sounds really similar but under sleeper pads? Yeah, I thought it might be. It's an absolute classic. So in IP Track back in the day, they did try and engineer it into a standard, but devolution was happening at the same time, and like Joe's already explained, the challenges around the regions are different, but it's foolproof in terms of longevity of asset, and I don't understand why we would not mandate it as an engineering solution, because the cost is negligible compared to what you're doing for a Cat 11 track renewal. You've got a Cat 11 track renewal, your ballast, your steel, your sleepers are 99% of your carbon and materials there, and your product is probably about 1%. Good luck.
You're finishing on a high. Okay, I am going to draw it to a close there. I just want to go back to a really key phrase you said when you were quoting Rachel as well. We're all trying to tackle the same issue here. So to use the coffee cup analogy, let's not be using single-use plastics. Let's be turning the lights off. But as organisations, let's look at that whole picture and where we can all organisationally make those big, systemic, strategic changes. And that's my two penneth. Any final closing comments from any of you guys?
Thank you for having us.
No, thank you. Thank you as well to Bauer, because, maybe about 9 or 10 months ago, I said to Bauer, you've not got sustainability on any of your panels, why not? And then, thanks, Tom. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you to our speakers. Can we give them a round of applause?